Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the peak-to-peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists.
The song that you are currently listening to is called Keepers. It's been performed in various capacities by Jerry Garcia, including as part of the Jerry Garcia Band. And this particular version of the song is performed by the Bruce Lish crew, a whole bunch of musicians that Bruce Lish, saxophonist, has brought together to collaborate and perform together. If you want to see Bruce Lish bring 4 other musicians together in a brand new live jam band performance, then be sure to head to Howlin' Wind Brewing to see the debut show of the new jam band KC36 Orange Sunshine Band. More details coming up during the podcast. Hello there, everybody. My name is Jamie Lammers, and welcome to last week's Music of the Mountains, Where to Be and What to See, brought to you by the Mountaineer Podcast. I once again apologize that this episode has been as delayed as it has been. I think from now on, I'm not going to set a particular schedule for podcast episodes. I'm just going to tell you in what order I'm planning to release the podcast episodes in. For some reason, it's becoming a lot harder for me to keep to a set schedule with this podcast. So from now on, you'll just hear which episodes are coming up in the near future. Now that we're here, though, let's get into last week's Music of the Mountains segment. Before we get into this week's interview, though, it's time for 2 quick announcements. First, if you're looking for something new to subscribe to in 2025, we highly recommend that you subscribe to us here at the Mountaineer. If you want to support us as well as local journalism as a whole, then be sure to head to our primary website at the mtnear.com and subscribe today. You can subscribe in the top right corner of the home page, and if you subscribe, you'll get full access to our digital archive. You'll be able to view scanned copies of the physical edition of the newspaper, and you can even choose if you want to receive a physical edition of the newspaper in your mailbox or send it to the mailbox of someone that you love. If you want something new to subscribe to, then head to themountaineer.com or the mtnear.com and subscribe today. And if you haven't subscribed before, then be sure to stay tuned to the end of this episode for a special discount specifically for Mountaineer podcast listeners. And here's the second quick message brought to you by the Mountaineer.
Are you interested in advertising? The Mountaineer has advertising in print on our website, through our social media. We have 3 guides each year, coupon insertions, and more. Want more information? Email marketing@themountaineer.com or give Bethany a call at 720-960-2900.
Actually, you know what? Since I'm airing this on Monday anyway, I'm just gonna announce this week's movie at the Backdoor Theater while I'm here too. This week's movie at the Backdoor Theater is Sonic the Hedgehog 3, rated PG. Here's a logline provided by the Backdoor. Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails reunite against a powerful new adversary, Shadow, a mysterious villain with powers unlike anything they have faced before. With their abilities outmatched, Team Sonic must seek out an unlikely alliance. If you want to see this brand new sequel adventure, then be sure to head over to the Backdoor Theater at the Nederland Community Center at 750 North Highway 72 in Nederland on Friday, January 31st, starting at 7 p.m., on Saturday, February 1st, starting at 2 p.m. for an open caption matinee, and again on Saturday, February 1st, starting at 7 p.m. for a great time at the movies. All right, now all the preliminary promotions are out of the way. Be sure to stay tuned to the end of this episode for last week's music mentions. But now it's time to jump into this week's interview. We have two guests today. I asked the basic questions that I usually ask all of my musicians, and they provided so much commentary on their musical career and this band that we're talking about today that they basically answered every question I could have asked them on their own accord. I am so grateful that both of them were so enthusiastic in this interview, and I'm so excited to bring this to you guys. So, our guests this week, do you mind introducing yourselves real quick?
Sure. I'm Bruce Lish, and I play saxophone in the band.
I'm John Heiland. I'm at the back of the bus playing bass.
That's awesome. Well, you two are on this particular episode of the Mountaineer Podcast today because you are in a band that is making its live debut very, very soon. That live debut will take place at Howlin' Wind Brewing and Blending in Rollinsville, correct?
That's correct, on Saturday, February 1st from 5 to 8 p.m. And John, do you want to tell Jamie what the name of the band is?
It's KC36 Orange Sunshine Band, or OSB for short, Oriented Strand Board, whatever you want to call that.
KC36 OSB. It did start out as KC36 and the Orange Sunshine Band, as in KC and the Sunshine Band. I think that's kind of where although KC36 has nothing to do with that.
No.
Although KC and the Sunshine Band has something to do with one song that we've been messing with a little bit.
A little bit.
The
KC36 is an homage to a strain of Vaganja that a good friend promulgated out there on the Cali coast back in the day, Sandy Alexander.
The legendary Sandman.
And Orange Sunshine kind of speaks for itself in the jam band world. And Bruce has a habit of making people come together to play music who haven't previously done so. And this is one of those episodes.
Yeah, we got Doug Diminico in the band on guitar. Doug is very well known as one of the leaders of a long-established Nederland area band, Smooth Money Gesture, most of whom are busy having children these days and paying mortgages, but we all still play. John Heiland here, I've known for over 20 years from back in the Sugarloaf String Band and Shanty Groove days in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that's John on bass, who can play anything. He's still working on the sousaphone.
That's correct.
Correct. Larry Nivissimo on drums, a dear friend, also from the Shanty days, also close buds for years, and John and Larry are the rhythm section for more than just KC36 OSB. AoxomoxoA, previously known as Seeing Stars, being another band they're very active in that we're close buds with, and we hang with and jam with and interrelate with at times. The last fellow I haven't mentioned yet is one of the best finds, one of the best things that's happened to me musically in 2024 was meeting Dave Pullins. Dave is known as a great mandolin player in the NoGo Gilbillies, and I just discovered this past July at Hallelujah that Dave is also a gifted keyboards player, and when it came time to kind of start thinking about this, seriously, he seemed a natural, like John and Larry are naturals, and Doug, another dear friend of course, all of these guys, I don't know Dave that well, Doug was also a perfect fit for the group, for what we're doing and such, and all of us here are fortunate to know lots of very talented musicians in the area up here, down the hill. People have to come from outside the region to understand the talent level and the depth of the music scene around here, from Fort Collins down to south of Denver. Whether you're talking Longmont, Denver, Boulder, Nederland, Rollinsville, Lyons. So, we're really fortunate in that regard. And these are all guys who played outside of Colorado. So these are guys who know the ropes, who really feel very, grateful to be playing music with. And I'm more motivated to practice now than I've been in a long time, Jamie.
I love hearing that. I think that's amazing. I wanted to quickly mention, this is the first time we've had Bruce on the podcast, but John has been on the podcast before. When AoxomoxoA, his current Grateful Dead tribute band, was originally Seeing Stars Band, I interviewed him to promote that band in the early days of the podcast. Episode 54 to be precise. You might have listened to it already. It's apparently our fourth most listened to episode of the podcast. But if you haven't checked it out and you want to learn more about John Heiland's efforts, then I highly recommend you check that episode out. I also mentioned Bruce when I covered Seeing Stars in the May 19th, 2022 edition of The Mountain Ear. And I just want to mention that both for that Seeing Stars promotion and for this week's Music of the Mountains promotion for KC36, I typed Bruce's name as Brush. I have no idea how I made this same mistake twice and never caught it, but I apologize to Bruce for getting his name wrong twice in a row. I told him about this, and he finds it funny, but I still feel bad about it, so I wanted to address it. Bruce and John in particular, how did you get started in music? When did you start performing it as a career? What are some of your primary influences, and have they continued over the years? All that kind of stuff.
John Heiland, would you like to take that first?
I grew up in Chicago, so steeped in the upriver Mississippi Basin blues. And at one point, I got a guitar and learned how to play basic blues. But I didn't get any performance under my belt until I moved to Colorado in 1991 and had the great fortune of some professional musicians living next door to me and hearing me noodle around. But what really got me going was the bluegrass scene. The bluegrassers took me in at the Millsite Inn up in Ward on their Saturday night bluegrass jams.
Which was legendary.
Legendary. So because of that, I wound up in a band in my mid-30s for the first time. And the Sugarloaf String Band did pretty good, and we're friends with the Yonder String Band and the Leftover Salmon and all that kind of scene. And at one point, I got lifted out of there to go on the road with Shanty Groove, which was a bunch of people half my age. And then my life derailed after that. And I'm still trying to recover.
We're not going to say that Shanty Groove was known for playing porn grass.
That's what it was, yeah.
Dave, I met the Shanty Groove gang and started to get to know John better in that time, right after I allegedly semi-retired from the heating business and had about 20 years of steam to blow off, and they were the best people to do that with and go down to Arizona and stuff like that with. It was just,
yeah. So that was jam grass for sure. That was rock and roll and bluegrass mixed together. And then our sound man, he outlasted everything we tried to do, and he became kind of famous. He's Galactic's front of house man, and he runs Tipitinas now.
Ryan Jones.
In New Orleans, yes. He had played bass in college, and he sold me his bass. And at that point, I had no musical band or anything going on, but I then became a bass player and was once again wanted. And so I played with my former drummer in Shanty Groove, Larry Nivissimo. He is tireless about keeping me going in music. So we got into a band together, Fat Rabbit. I guess I was still playing mandol a little bit for that.
You played electric mandolin in that band.
And then after that, he started a band called the Funky Tonk Heroes, and I played bass in that. And then that band went away, and he said, "We need another band, John." And that's when we got together with the Rutherfords and started doing the Seeing Stars Band that played a lot of Grateful Dead, and now that's morphed into an actual Grateful Dead cover band called AoxomoxoA. And
the second Grateful Dead album, I believe.
Sorry, editor's note that I want to make real quick. AoxomoxoA was actually the third Grateful Dead album after their self-titled debut and Anthem of the Sun.
While we've been busy doing that, Bruce said, "Hey, I want to do something for my birthday. How about we get a band together?" And so that's led me back into the semi-jazz jam band kind of thing.
Yeah, I would hesitate to say that we're a fusion band, but we certainly, in KC36, as you've read, we cover a lot of ground.
Might be more of a fission band.
Fission band, yeah. They haven't perfected fusion yet. If we were to perfect fusion, there'd be an awful lot of power get released, energy, which might yet happen, Jamie. There's no telling, because we know that my dad was a nuclear engineer. So
now Bruce's history
Oh, my God.
It's recently come to light that he spent some time with Ken Kesey, mostly grilling ribs for him, I think.
3 in the morning in Gainesville, Florida. And what year would that have been? Somewhere around 78?
Bruce comes from the creative writing, and not musical writing. I mean literature.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that to you, Jamie. I have a degree in creative writing. And it's true what John says. For those who know Ken Kesey, who Ken Kesey was, he was nothing less than one of the pivotal figures in our generation. No question about it. Close friend of Jerry Garcia, which is true. And yeah, I did meet him, and it did cause me to withdraw from the University of Florida, this time voluntarily, and come back out to Colorado. I ended up staying 6 months, and the next thing you know, I finally graduated from Florida in Gainesville and came back and finally settled here. I have family here, my brother and his family. So yeah, what John says is true. I was blessed, incredibly fortunate to be able to help entertain one of my true heroes over the 3 out of the 4 evenings he was in Gainesville for the U.S. 10th Annual Writers Conference, and because he knew a cousin of my dad's back beatnik story days, next thing I know, I'm entertaining this guy off campus with people who became close friends of mine late into the evening when he's in Florida for this special thing. So basically, young deadheads kidnapped merry prankster Chief back when he was in his 40s and we were in college, and it forever changed my life, no question.
I wanted to add a note here to talk about Ken Kesey's legacy. As a writer, Ken Kesey published many books, including 4 novels, over his lifetime. While he considered his second novel, Sometimes a Great Notion, an epic account of an Oregon logging family, his magnum opus during his lifetime, it's not the one that's most remembered. I would argue the book of his that is most remembered today is his debut novel, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which was adapted into a film in 1975. That film is one of only 3 in history to win what are called the Big 5 Academy Awards: Best Screenplay, Director, Actress, Actor, and Picture. The only other 2 being 1934's It Happened One Night and 1991's The Silence of the Lambs. Lish also mentioned that Kesey was the chief of a group called the Merry Pranksters. This was a group of people, including Kesey, who lived communally at Kesey's homes in California and Oregon, and some of their escapades turned into parties across San Francisco known as acid tests. And it should be noted that the reason that Kesey was close friends with Jerry Garcia is because the Grateful Dead was the in-house band for the acid test parties. Anyway, I have a feeling the majority of you who grew up around that time have heard of Kesey, but for anybody who didn't know who Kesey was, I wanted to explain the context of that. Anyway, now back to John and Bruce.
Were you playing saxophone at that time?
I knew somebody was going to ask that. Right after Kesey left town might be when I bought my first saxophone at the pawn shop.
So you weren't like in the high school band or anything?
I played
like that.
first grade through 9th grade, so I did the whole elementary, junior high school group lesson, the school band on the alto saxophone. Then I quit after 9th grade, combination of I'd already had the best band conductor I'll ever have in my life. I had just gotten braces, and there was going to be a direct conflict between soccer and marching band. So that's when I quit, and I started playing again, not too long before I met you. In 1987, I guess, is when I started playing again. Took private lessons for 4 years. I don't know if you knew that. Once a week for an hour. Several years, 10 years later, Johnny Z was my teacher, who I saw for 8 months every couple of weeks when I was a little bit more advanced player. And somewhere along that line, I discovered that Jerry Garcia is an interesting point, Jamie, that a lot of what comes, or some of the impetus from KC36 comes from Jerry Garcia Band and Legion of Mary and stuff like that, not necessarily the Grateful Dead, so the focus being Garcia. And it was around that time, somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s, through the Grateful Dead newsletter, that I finally discovered, mid-80s actually, that Garcia and Phil Lesh, the bass player who we just lost, and Mickey Hart, their percussionist drummer player in the Grateful Dead, those 3, and even some of the other guys, Kreutzmann, and even Bob Weir a little bit, were all listening to John Coltrane. And this John I discovered after I was drawn to John Coltrane through my first teacher and stuff. It was really weird. All the stuff came together where I was like, oh, in other words, if Coltrane had lived, he would have jammed with the Grateful Dead. There's no question about it. So yeah, Jamie, I've taken private lessons. I took almost 15 years off from playing. I met a bunch of deadheads at the heating company who invaded our weatherization department, got me me to start playing again, and playing by ear, private lessons, nicer saxophone, just all kinds of incredible good fortune in terms of that. So the operable thing here is I need to find more time in the rest of my life to continue to work on what I think I'm playing better than I ever have, which is astounding at my age. I think that's the case, don't you?
What is your age?
I don't even know.
I think it's 67.
Something. I could be.
Maybe you could say, at least for the two of us, this band is kind of like what happened if John Coltrane and Jerry Garcia had a baby together. Because when I was in Chicago, I was riding the subway to work, and I heard this guy who was sweeping at my station where I would get on. He was whistling a tune, and I was like, hey, man, what's that tune? I love that tune. It wasn't a Coltrane tune. It was Moonbeams and Polka Dots. A traditional jazz song, and I was like, oh, that's really beautiful. He goes, do you play? And we struck up a conversation, and he said, do you listen to jazz? And I was like, well, not really. I think I like it. He goes, man, go get Lush Life by John Coltrane and talk to me after you've listened to the album. So Coltrane was also an early thing in my music.
And that album dispels the whole myth about Coltrane being so far out there and nuts that you can't listen to him.
True.
That album and ballads totally dispel that whole thing about Train. We'll get out there a little bit, but maybe not like him and Pharoah Sanders did.
No.
But yeah, so I'm from Long Island, in case I didn't mention that to you. I've been in Colorado for coming up on 44 years pretty soon, and I'm fortunate to have an older brother here. Yeah. Like I was saying, the KC36 is kind of, I think for me, and hopefully, this is not a short-term project, and hopefully it holds together, and we have as much fun as we've been having, and we continue to add new tunes. And for me, it's a big step, because when I finally step completely away from the stupid blue-collar thing that makes me insane half the time, this is hopefully a good first step in the right direction.
Is that your plug for Save Home Heat?
No. Do not mention the company's name, please. That's off limits for any conversation.
Okay.
My heating career in itself is astounding. But the saxophone is what got me up to Netherlands in mid-late September of 1989. I moved up here to Woodshed and private lessons, my first nice saxophone. I'm playing a Selmer Paris Mark VI tenor right now, which is one of the nicest tenor saxophones you can find. And the guy who takes care of it for me has worked with the Rolling Stones extensively and the Dave Matthews Band. And now you know why I can play in the middle of the night. When stuff like that falls into your life, my friend, you find the time and energy one way or another. Mm-hmm.
Now, you two talked earlier about the origin of the band name KC36 Orange Sunshine Band, which is a reference to quite a few different things, including KC and the Sunshine Band. I wanted to mention here that KC and the Sunshine Band also has an interesting story behind their name. KC is two letters that stands for the last name of the lead vocalist of the band, that vocalist being Harry Wayne Casey, and the Sunshine Band is a direct reference to his home state of Florida. And frankly, I think that name ties very well into this group of people, particularly with Bruce's connections to Florida. And at this point, you guys are fully embracing the name. You're fully embracing this project as a whole. You've even created a logo for this particular show at Howlin' Wind in the style of a Colorado license plate.
The artist and sound recording guru in the band is sitting right here with me, and I couldn't be happier.
Don't forget the spaceships.
The spaceships, right. Spaceships too. We design spaceships. But ours go somewhere and they don't suck people dry. Sorry. We don't ruin the country in the process. No, right. I didn't say that.
Ours run on imagination.
Yes, we're like that South Park trilogy. The good stuff, not the... Butters, you're not in imagination land now. You're grounded. I hope that answers some important questions for you.
You guys have been great at answering a lot of the questions that I have. And I wanted to transition into asking about the Colorado music scene in general. You guys have been performing for a long time, particularly in the state of Colorado. So what stuck out to you about performing in the Colorado music scene? What stuck out to you about Colorado that is different from anywhere else you've performed?
Well, this is where I learned to be a performer, and what people told me, and I believe was true, was that Colorado, when I started playing music, the musicians here were very open and friendly to each other and not competitive in a way of trying to block people from getting opportunity. And I think, as far as I know, that's still kind of the vibe.
It's the predominant vibe,
in Colorado.
Yeah.
And when I started performing in the later 1990s, there was a lot of music blossoming here. You know, Leftover Salmon was doing really well, and String Cheese were doing really well, and they were lifting people up like Yonder String Band and Elephant Revival that came a little bit later than that. So I saw a lot of projects get started and a lot of opportunity for people to perform in front of a crowd, and not just like the Fox Theater and the Boulder Theater kind of levels. You know, for a while there, Nederland had over a half a dozen places with live music, and they might all be going on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
And a significant amount of people made it up to the hills safely and made it home safely, or found somewhere where they could crash safely.
Yeah, without so much goddamn salt on the road. But,
Yeah.
So I think I look at it as fortunate. I joke about the music experience sort of derailing my life, especially because I took it up being a performer. Like, I went on the road at about age 40 to age 46. 47. So it was pretty much impossible for me to return to like a normal working life after that. But I look back on it as a good decision because it's a very rare opportunity. I've seen people try and start businesses, and I've seen people try and start musical businesses. And a band, I think, is even harder a business than any other small business. So if you get a chance to have one, that's a rare opportunity, and it might be worth chucking your other plans aside.
I'm going to. I swear. I am going to. It's happening. I think by March 1st, I need to decide for sure. We're not talking about June 1st being my official retirement date.
If you're called to music, that is. So I found it very rewarding. So that's what I would say about playing in Colorado.
I addressed that earlier. I said something about the depth and the breadth and the talent level, the ability. John talked about how really open. For me, getting to be part of the Yonder Family 2.0 there in the early 2000s, and go play on a big stage outside of Portland and show those guys and actually be on tour saving Jeff's life. But I won't go into that. But that was in like around 2001, where I helped him after High Sierra, and he and I drove his one unit of Yonder, and then the guys had this rented minivan, and I saved his life apparently at that point. But the openness to what those boys were addressing at that time, taking a cross between what Leftover Salmon was doing and what Newgrass Revival and John Hartford were doing. And Jeff Austin was brilliant. There's
Absolutely.
No question. I know for a fact that whole acoustic 4-piece or 5-piece, totally rocking out, no drums, no effects, that whole avenue, which has become incredibly popular lately. I know Jeff was the one who came up with that idea. I remember the time. I remember him talking about it, the whole thing. And Greg Garrison, I don't know if you know this, John, who is the incredible bass player with Leftover Salmon, who quoted Unbroken Chain of the Grateful Dead at Boulder Theater right after Thanksgiving. Jeff was the one who introduced Greg to Leftover.
Right.
And
right.
also Noam Pikelny.
Right.
On banjo
I
after
met both of
Marquez.
those guys in Champaign-Urbana on tour with them.
Yeah. And he's the one who dragged Dave Johnston out from the Chicago area also. So a lot of interweaving there, Jamie. We're heavily affected by the bluegrass scene. I'm a deadhead through and through. I mean, my workday is dominated.
Jerry Garcia was into the bluegrass.
Jerry, of course, was big in the bluegrass scene.
He played the banjo.
He used to chase around Bill Monroe with microphones.
That's right.
Yeah.
The chief.
Yeah. So Garcia covers a lot of ground, as you can see, which is one of the reasons so many people like us are drawn to him. He goes from bluegrass to psychedelic, call it acid rock, to jazz. He covers those grounds and beyond. Folk, traditional Appalachia. Garcia is a great model for a lot of people. I just happen to love listening to Jerry Garcia. And the fact that I'm playing in a band now that has actually 3 vocalists wasn't my original vision. It's far better than my original vision. So that's why I can study one song by Garcia with Legion of Mary for 45 minutes at a show. I mean, at home, here at night at times. So there you go, blah, blah, blah. Did John answer your question?
And it sounds like all of the musicians who are joining in this lineup for this band debut all really enjoy playing in a band in general. And particularly you, Bruce and John, seem to have a particular enthusiasm for a band lineup. What's been your experience performing in bands versus performing as a solo actor, performing in a duo actor, performing in something that isn't quite a band lineup? What sticks out to you about performing in a band in general? What do you love about performing in a band?
So I try to give a short stab at that. The potential energy, the potential fun, the potential new ground and creativity, insofar as I'm concerned, the ideal size of a group for me at this point is a 5 or a 6-piece group. 5-piece, honestly, just like the size and instrumentation you have, because the potential is greater. You get louder. People can have more fun, and everybody, and the audience. And the interaction is between us, among us, individually, the whole group, 2, 3, 4 at a time, and the audience at the same time. So anyway, John?
I have done very little solo performing. I've done a little bit of it, and it's about the most frightening thing I've ever done. So I like being in a group, because then we're all up there naked, and then I don't feel like everyone's looking at me. And I like just getting together and playing music with people, but it takes on a whole different dimension. Even if there's an audience that's not even really paying attention to you, at least they're there. And then the musical experience is different. There's definitely you're not going to stop and rewind and try it again. You get very much into the moment, and at its best, I disappear, and I definitely have had a lot of experience performing now, thousands of times, and at its best, I have no idea what happened, and I always enjoy getting a chance, if it's recorded, to hear what happened. And I've often had contrary experience during the performance to what I experienced listening. I've had some times where I performed and I thought, boy, that was a lousy show. And then I listen to it and I go, man, that was good.
You sound so much like some Garcia stuff I've been reading lately, some interviews with him. He said just like that. You don't know that, but I do. I've read like all the Rolling Stone interviews with Garcia and the Dead, all of them. And Jerry said something very similar. And what John said, Jamie, about, like, I'll finish something and go head backstage or something after a song, maybe I'll get a compliment. It happens occasionally these days. And I'll be like, man, I have no f***ing idea what I just did. I don't remember any of it.
And I like to play music by myself at home. I'm practicing or whatever, but I like to be involved with my community, and, I'll help somebody shovel snow or stack wood or whatever, push them out of a ditch, but it's a lot more fun to help out your community by playing music, doing something you really enjoy yourself.
A little side note, I suppose. So when Frozen Dead Guy Days went from about 2,000 or so attendance to around 17 or 18,000, call it 2015, 2016 at that point. So during that 5-6 year period or so, I worked really closely with Amanda McDonald, my pal. She and I developed the whole music lineup for like 6 years for Dead Guy Days, and I did all of the booking for 5 years and helped run one of the tents, and got great opportunities to sit in with people like Matt Flaherty and Otis and just all these incredible musicians from all over the Boulder, Denver area, and even a few select bands from out of state. And that's just one of my levels of involvement in the music community, something I've really enjoyed and I totally miss. But I have incredible memories from that period of time. That was a real special period of time because it was before everything got out of control and certain entities decided to be even less cooperative and more greedy in the whole process. And of course we saw the thing come to a crashing halt, COVID, and go away. And it's a darn shame. Darn shame NedFest went away. And I can't even begin to go there. Yeah, so I think John and I both have a lot of different community levels involved here. And we're not in the middle of the battle in Ned like I once was in Old Town, but we're very much part of the community and we're real close by. So. Amanda McDonald was great to work with. I never had any problems. We worked well together. It was great. I made her make all decisions. I did a lot of the thinking. She did a lot of the screening and thinking. We did a lot of chatting, and she made decisions, and I followed through. It was a great experience. You can only imagine in 3 days, well, 1 night and 2 days, sitting in with 7 different groups, some of whom you've never played with before. It was just an enormous rush. And so I think that might relate to playing in a 5-piece band. You can get a rush out of playing in a 2-piece also. It's just entirely different. Like John said, it's scary as hell. You're naked. And I'm like, boy, I like the keyboard player and a rhythm section and electric guitar. And so that's where we are at with this group, and we're hoping for the best, Have fun. It's all about having a good time. Go on tour before we turn 80.
And if you've ever gone to see your favorite band playing locally and there was like a Muppet character with a saxophone that came up all of a sudden, that was Bruce.
I can't contradict that, John. I can't. I don't even know how many bands I've sat in.
play in so many venues with so many acts over the years.
100?
I'm often astounded when you're not
80 to 100?
crashing something.
It's that whole studying improvisation and coming from Garcia and Coltrane. And it's so much fun, especially if your ear is working and your hands are right on and connected. And I'm doing pretty good about that right now. I swim Wednesdays. I'm trying to up it. I go to the Gilpin County Rec Center usually on Wednesday. I can't tell you what time because then you'll tell other people.
How many yards?
1,500 now. So 30 laps now. Pretty good. I started swimming laps again a little over 2 years ago, specifically because of my tenor saxophone and the fellow who works on it and the level I want to get to as a player and the enjoyment I get as I continue to make progress. So I found myself in the Gilpin pool, and the first day I found myself laying on my back on the side of the pool after only 250 yards. Did I tell you about the EMTs who came, and 3 of them had worked with my brother, who was a lieutenant at West Metro Fire. So 3 of the guys who came to check me out out of 8 of them, because nothing going on other than drinking coffee. Everybody was down the block. They all came over to say hi to me. And we had a lot of fun chatting about my brother, the retired firefighter. But that was just over 2 years ago, 5 laps, 250 yards. And just to make sure, it's 30 laps now, 1,500 yards. And I couldn't be any happier. You get to listen to Grateful Dead to and from on Sirius XM, so it's just ideal. And you drive the peak to peak. I'm over near the top of Sugarloaf, not far from John's, so it's a wonderful drive. This is the official plug for the Gilpin County Rec Center. Go there. Take advantage of it. They're really great people. They take good care of the place. It's well maintained. Anything else?
Well, since you guys talked so in depth about why you love performing live, not just in a band, but in general, I think there's one big question that I want to finish this off with. What do you hope people take away from your shows in general, particularly this debut show for KC36? What do you want your audiences to come away with after this show?
They have a good time.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm in my own little bubble, so maybe they'll hear some music like by somebody that they're not familiar with. Since we're pulling from a bunch of genres, like Bruce said, Garcia was all over the place. He had really good taste in what he covered when he wasn't playing his own music. So through him, I've definitely personally discovered a lot of artists that I now listen to their music as well. So maybe we'll inspire someone to listen to an artist that they hadn't been familiar with in the past.
Expose people to stuff they've never heard of.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's it. Yeah, for sure. And have a good time. We may stretch a couple of songs here and there. We may take some liberties with our arrangements, so we can take a right or a left turn or go straight up.
And you're going to have some guest artists.
There's some folks around Rollinsville and around the net area who are absolutely going to be getting invited. Special, really talented guitar players and singers and other folks, which might be forthcoming in the next release. You know, I'm not at liberty at this point to mention if Ben or Randy or Lonnie or Big Todd. Not at liberty to... Okay, I mean, I can mention them, I suppose. I guess I just did. But yeah.
So there might be a little bit of a review aspect to the show where we'll have some people who aren't a part of the band per se get spotlights as well. That will...
People we've all played with.
Yeah.
And who are good friends. And I basically owe, as far as you can tell around net, I think I owe 2.5 dozen people, friends of mine, invites to sit in the second set. We're really looking forward to it. As it gets further to the evening, we'll still be playing our stuff pretty much, but it'll open up even more for some couple of guitar players maybe at some point. And who knows what we'll be doing. We try to be as flexible as possible. So that's why I get on the workout mat and the Pilates rollers every morning, is to be as flexible as possible when I play.
When you say hi, I say how high?
Very. Or not enough. I don't know. The Orange Sunshine reference is interesting because I've never run across it. Have you?
I don't think so.
So we're projecting.
I will not be on acid at our performance.
No, I won't either.
Really?
No way.
Are you sure?
I've been on acid since 1977.
In that case, I think those are the biggest questions I have on my end.
Well, thank you, and thank Barb also, please.
Yeah.
Thank Christian for us also, please.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you to Christian Van Eck and Barbara Hart, particularly Barbara, because she forwarded me the email that Bruce sent her wanting to promote this particular show. And thank you, Bruce and John, for being so enthusiastic about promoting this show, coming on board and joining us for the podcast. It was a total blast interviewing you two. If you want to see Larry Nivissimo on drums, Dave Pullins on keys, Doug Diminico on guitar, John Heiland on bass, and Bruce Lish on the saxophone, and perhaps a slew of other musical guests coming to this particular show, then be sure to check out the debut performance of the jam band KC36 Orange Sunshine Band at Howlin' Wind Brewing and Blending, located at 51A Main Street in Rollinsville on Saturday, February 1st, 2025, starting at 5 p.m. And now for last week's music mentions. Head to Busey Brews, located at 70 East 1st Street in Netherland on Sunday, February 2nd, starting at 2 p.m. to see Crick Wooder performing live. Head to Eldora Mountain Resort, located primarily at 2861 Eldora Ski Road in Netherland on Wednesday, January 29th, starting at noon to see Ashley Priest performing in Timbers Tap House. Be sure to head back there on Friday, January 31st, starting at 9 a.m. to see DJ Goody in the Boombox. On Friday, January 31st at noon to see PJ Moon, the artist in residence, performing in Timbers Tap House. On Saturday, February 1st, starting at 9 a.m. to see CTRZ in the Boombox. On Saturday, February 1st at noon to see Andy Reiner in Timbers Tap House. On Sunday, February 2nd, starting at 9 a.m. to see PJ the DJ in the Boombox. And on Sunday, February 2nd, starting at noon to see NoGo Gilbillies in Timbers Tap House. Head to Howlin' Wind Brewing and Blending, located at 51A Main Street in Rollinsville on Saturday, February 1st, starting at 5 p.m. to see the debut live performance of KC36 Orange Sunshine Band. Head to the Jamestown Mercantile, located at 108 Main Street in Jamestown on Thursday, January 30th, starting at 7 p.m. to see Chicken Coop Willie Band performing live. On Friday, January 31st, starting at 7 p.m. to see Mountain Reverb performing live. And on Sunday, February 2nd, starting at 11 a.m. to see Earth to Aaron performing live. Head to Knotted Root Brewing, located at 250 North Caribou Street in Netherland for regular music events. Wednesdays at 6 p.m. for an open mic night, Fridays at 7:30 p.m. for a DJ night, second Fridays at 7:30 p.m. for a reggae DJ night, and Sundays at 5 p.m. for Jazz Sundays. Head to the Caribou Room, located at 55 Indian Peaks Drive in Netherland on Friday, January 31st for a tribute to Phil Lesh featuring the Big Bottom Band. Doors open and dinner starts at 7 p.m., and the show starts at 8 p.m. And finally, pick your preference. If you want to head over to Gilpin County, then be sure to head over to the Very Nice Brewing Company location at 180 Jankowski Drive in Blackhawk on Saturday, February 1st, starting at 5 p.m. to see Reservoir Fog performing live. If you want to head over to Netherland, then be sure to head over to the Very Nice Brewing Company location at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in the Caribou Village Shopping Center on Friday, January 31st, starting at 5 p.m. to see Windy Pines performing live. Did we miss you or any of your performances? Do you want to submit your music listing in the Peak to Peak area? Do you have updates to your business or to your performances? Please call 303-810-5409 or email info@themountaineer.com to be included in the next print edition or the next podcast of The Mountain Ear. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to last week's Music of the Mountains, Where to Be and What to See, brought to you by the Mountain Ear Podcast. Hopefully, I'll be back in the next 24 hours with our regular segment brought to you by Marianne Rosen, and then again on our regularly scheduled Friday slot for Music of the Mountains. At this point, though, if it doesn't come out exactly on Friday, just know that the next episode is going to be a Marianne Rosen segment, and the episode after that is going to be the next Music of the Mountains episode. And we'll get more episodes out there in the near future about the community of the Peak to Peak at large. In fact, if you have a story that you want us to talk about involving the Peak to Peak area, and you want to talk about it yourself, come on here on the podcast, put some advertising on the podcast, sort something out with somebody else for them to come on the podcast and talk about their story. Whatever it is, if you have something that you want to share on the Mountaineer Podcast or bring to the Mountaineer Podcast, then be sure to email me at media@themountaineer.com and we'll get something sorted for you. If you want to check out other episodes or share this episode or others with whoever you see fit, then be sure to head to our main website at the mtnear.com and scroll near to the bottom, or head to our podcast's primary hub at the mtnearpodcast.buzzsprout.com, where you can see our full archive. You can also send us a text by heading to the individual description of any of our episodes and letting us know what you think about the podcast. I'll be back in the very near future with our regular segment brought to you by Marianne Rosen. Until then, have a great rest of your day.
Still remember it was autumn and the moon shining. A 60 Cadillac was rolling, brass was whining. 220 man, the field was bending over, headed for the mountains, knowing we was gonna travel. All the fires are blazing and the spinning wheels are turning, turning, and my
The song that you are currently listening to is called Get Out of Denver. It was originally performed by Bob Seger and is performed here by a group of musicians colloquially known as the Bruce Lish Crew. Bruce Lish, the saxophonist, has gathered a bunch of musicians together in various different capacities to collaborate and perform together. And he's doing it again with John Heiland on bass, Larry Nivissimo on drums, Dave Pullins on keys, and Doug Diminico on guitar. They, along with Bruce Lish on the saxophone, will be performing for the very first time as KC36 Orange Sunshine Band at Howlin' Wind Brewing and Blending, located at 51A Main Street in Rollinsville, on Saturday, February 1st, 2025, starting at 5 p.m.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak to Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.